Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to Arbitrary 20. In this video we're going to be going over the changes to the Rogue in the 2024 revision of D&D, mainly focusing on what these changes mean for different multi-class builds and some potential new builds these changes might open up. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get started here with Weapon Mastery. Just like every other martial class, Rogue gets Weapon Mastery as well. I talked about all the different Weapon Masteries in the Fighter video and the Paladin video. I think the Weapon Mastery that's going to be best with Rogue is going to be Vex, specifically if you have a way to make 2 attacks on your turn. Since Rogues don't have extra attack, you'll need to have something like 2 light weapons or crossbow expert or something like that. Get 2 attacks on your turn, and thus you get the benefit from Vex on your turn. Otherwise, you're hitting on your turn and then waiting until your next turn to get advantage, which isn't very good, since after a whole round of turns, that same target might not even be there. So yeah, I think Vex will be best, assuming that you're able to make 2 attacks on your turn somehow. And then we have Thieves' Cant, which gives an additional language proficiency. That's a nice little buff, but I don't think it'll be a huge deal. And then on to the Rogue subclass changes, so no changes at level 2. So first we have the Arcane Trickster. Now they can swap out a cantrip each time they level up. Versatile Trickster has now been changed so that when you use the trip option of your Cunning Strike on an enemy, you can target an additional creature within 5 feet of your mage hand. And I believe they mentioned in the video, just like for the Eldritch Knight, you're now able to use any of the wizard spells. You're not locked into enchantment and illusion spells anymore, which I think that's actually the best change overall. These first 2 changes are pretty good, but the main reason to pick the Arcane Trickster is to get spells, and having a lot more options for those spells is really nice, especially when you're trying to build around them. And then we have the Assassin. You can now more easily trigger Assassinate and Death Strike, but the damage has been reduced. I believe they said in the video that it's no longer based on surprise, so the damage ceiling of the class will likely be a lot lower, but you'll be able to use Assassinate and Death Strike a lot more often, so it'll probably even out in the end. I think this really only matters in builds where you're taking 3 levels of Assassin and hyper focusing on stealth to try to get surprise every combat, and in a lot of cases those builds were actually pretty difficult to pull off because you have to convince your party to also stealth all the time, and that might not be what every character in your party wants to do. I think overall this will be a good change to the Assassin and let them use their features more often. And then they say they've improved the poison and impersonation features, and you're able to move after using steady aim, which is actually pretty cool. You can shoot and then move back to try to kite enemies. So if you're doing a ranged rogue build, steady aim is pretty much just free with the Assassin. And then we have the Soul Knife. They say it's largely unchanged. The Psychic Blades now have a range of 60-120 instead of just 60, and they have the Vex Mastery property, largely unchanged. It does worry me a little bit because there were a lot of weird situations with the Psychic Blades. You couldn't make opportunity attacks or really any reaction attacks with them.
Hey guys, I'm editing this video and I actually just learned that the Psychic Blades feature was fixed. They can now be used with opportunity attacks, and it now even works with things like the Sentinel feat, since the reaction you get with that feature now counts as an opportunity attack.
But lastly, we have the Thief. They can activate a magic item as a bonus action and have a unique Cunning Strike option called Stealth Attack that allows you to remain hidden after attacking. That actually sounds pretty cool, especially if you have something else to do with your bonus action that you're not using to hide anymore. Like if you can make additional attacks with your bonus action. Use Magic Device saw the most changes. It now offers you an additional attunement slot, grants a chance to activate magic items without expending charges, and allows you to use spell scrolls no matter your class or spellcasting prowess. I think it's debatable whether this is really a buff or a nerf. Either way, this feature is super campaign dependent, like how many magic items you get and what magic items you get that have class requirements. That's what the old feature did. It let you use magic items that you didn't have the class requirements for, but now you get an additional attunement slot and you have the chance to not use charges and you can use spell scrolls. So I think it just kind of depends on what magic items you get during your campaign, which one of these would be better. But I know there were some weird rulings with both this feature and the activating a magic item as a bonus action, so it's good that those have been cleared up, or at least it looks like that's the case. Thief has always been difficult to build around because you don't really know what magic items you're going to be able to get, but depending on your campaign, this could be something you could use in a build. And then we have Steady Aim that was released in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and it's pretty much the same. If you don't know what it does, it lets you, as a bonus action, not move for the turn, but you get advantage on your attack. So it's pretty much just a consistent way to be able to get sneak attack at the cost of your movement and your bonus action. And then we have Cunning Strike at level 5. When you deal your sneak attack damage, you can choose to forego 1 or more of the dice to add a Cunning Strike effect to your attack, and the DC scales off of your dexterity. So at level 5 we'll get 3 different choices. choices: poison, trip, or withdraw. With poison, you can subtract a d6 to make them make a Constitution saving throw, or be poisoned for 1 minute. They can repeat the save at the end of each of their turns. Assuming the poison condition is pretty much the same, I think this will be pretty strong. Giving the enemy disadvantage on all of their attack rolls is pretty much just a way better version of the sap weapon mastery. We'll have to see with the new monster manual if Constitution saving throws are still the worst ones to target, or if it's a little bit more balanced, but my initial thought with that, and some of the ones we get later on that require a Constitution saving throw, is that they're going to be a little bit weaker. And then we have trip. You can make them make a dexterity saving throw or fall prone. The target has to be large or smaller though. This will be pretty good if you're a melee rogue to give yourself advantage, or if you're a ranged rogue shooting at a target next to one of your melee allies, you could use this to give them advantage on their next turn, or you could use it on a target that's not next to any of your party members just to take away half their speed. And then we have withdraw, which lets you move up to half your speed without provoking opportunity attacks right after your attack. So pretty much just a free disengage if you give up a d6 of your sneak attack damage. And then reliable talent is pretty much the same, but they have moved it from level 11 to level 7, which is pretty big. This is by far the best feature for builds focusing on skills, and it's really cool that you'll be able to get it online 4 levels earlier, and the fact that you can also take 4 less levels of rogue may also let you take an additional multi-class. And then at level 11 we have improved cunning strike. It lets you use 2 cunning strike options at once, so you can use 2 of any of these 3, or you can use 1 of these plus 1 of the ones you get from your subclass. And then at level 14 we get 3 more options with devious strikes. The first one being daze, which costs 2d6. It's another Constitution saving throw, but if they fail they'll only be able to take an action or a bonus action on their next turn. So it's sort of like the dazed condition that didn't make it, or the Tasha's mind whip spell. And then we have knockout, which costs 66, which is I think almost all of your sneak attack dice at this level. If they fail a Constitution saving throw, they're unconscious for a minute, but they get to repeat the save at the end of each of their turns. So when you first read this, it does seem really good, but again, it is a Constitution saving throw, and in the past features like that haven't been very good. And if we're comparing this to spellcasters, this is pretty much the effect of some 1st or 2nd level spells, and some 3rd and 4th level spells can do similar effects to multiple targets, so I'm not sure if giving up the majority of your damage is going to be worth it for that. And then lastly we have obscure, which costs 3d6. The target has to make a dexterity saving throw, or they are blinded until the end of the next turn. I think this one's actually pretty good. I think it's a little bit better than trip, since blinded is good for both melee enemies and ranged enemies. You're not giving anyone disadvantage, you're just giving everyone advantage, and the target can't just get up. They're just blinded until the end of their next turn, and there's not really anything they can do about it. So unless they're immune to the condition somehow, they're pretty much guaranteed to have disadvantage on their attacks as well. So yeah, I think this one's pretty strong, and it's a dexterity saving throw, which has been one of the better saving throws to target in the past, but we'll have to see if that holds up with the new monster manual. I think obscure is probably my favorite of these 3 with the information we have now. And then blind sense at level 14 has been removed. It's been replaced with devious strikes and an upgrade to slippery mind at level 15, which, speaking of, at level 15 we get slippery mind. You get proficiency in wisdom and charisma saving throws instead of just wisdom saving throws, so it looks like just no more blind sight to 10 feet. I don't think that's a huge deal, but if you do still really want something like that, I think you could just take a feat to get the blind fighting style, or you could just take 1 level of fighter. And then just like every other class, the rogue gets the epic boon at level 19. The boon they're revealing here is the boon of the night spirit. It increases an ability score by 1, and while in dim light or darkness you have resistance to all damage except psychic and radiant, and as a bonus action you can gain the invisible condition. This one seems extremely strong. In combination with uncanny dodge and evasion, this could make you really tanky, and you can pretty much just guarantee your sneak attack whenever you want with bonus action gain invisible. I wonder if there's any limitations to the invisibility, or it's just on until you turn it off. I really like the direction they're taking with these epic boons. They really feel like the overpowered, almost broken features that you should be getting at 18th, 19th, and 20th level. Some of the capstones do still feel a little bit disappointing, but so far all of these have seemed really good. And then lastly at level 20 we have Stroke of Luck. You can now use Stroke of Luck on saving throws, and when you fail a d20 test it turns your roll into 20. This means a missed attack roll becomes a critical hit, and the capstone feature still functions the same with ability checks and still recharges on a short or long rest. So once per short rest you can just get a nat 20, which is pretty cool, definitely better than a lot of the other capstones. Honestly, I think some of the epic boons are more powerful than this, but this is still a cool feature nonetheless. But looks like that's it for the rogue. One thing I do think they missed here was a little bit of a damage increase for the rogue. That was one thing they kind of always lacked. I haven't seen the monk yet, but it looks like all the other martials are getting decent damage increases, and the rogue might be getting left behind a little bit. They are getting a lot of utility, which is pretty cool. That's also something they didn't have a ton of before in combat. They have a decent amount of utility outside of combat. I think all of these are good changes to the rogue, but it would have been nice for them to get a little bit more damage as well. But yeah, that's all I have for this video. Let me know what you guys thought of the changes to the rogue in the comments down below. In the last video, I talked about the barbarian. If you'd like to check that out, it'll be right here. And it looks like next time we'll be talking about the druid, so hope to see you there. And thank you guys for watching. Hope you have an awesome rest of your day, and we'll see you in the next one.